Coming your way, featuring the stars of Stuttgart. It's on Thursday the 7th of June, that's next Thursday. We'll be live with the show from Vicar Street in association with Boyle Sports. Hosts on the night, Nathan Murphy and Kevin Kilban. We'll be joined by an all-star team, Ronnie Whelan, Kevin Moran, and the man who put the ball in the England net, Ray Houghton, as well. John Giles will also be there to share his own Stuttgart memories and to preview the World Cup. More special guest announcements will be coming your way very soon as well. To get your tickets, see offtheball.com/events. Now, the football show.
The Football Show on Off the Ball.
In association with the faster than ever Boyle Sports app for exclusive price enhancements on the biggest games around. Download it now. Boyle Sports. Time to play.
I'm prepared to do anything I can to play for my country again.
Do it then. What about your start to the game?
It wasn't bad, was it?
Why should an honest answer be a mistake?
How can a modern day manager not have a mobile phone?
Why should he?
And exciting times on the Football Show. You're very welcome this evening. We'll be talking largely about France with Paul Doyle from The Guardian very shortly, and also what's happened to Team USA, not at their first World Cup since 1986. Obviously they play Ireland in a friendly this weekend. And exciting times on the Football Show. You're very welcome this evening. We'll be talking largely about France with Paul Doyle from The Guardian very shortly, and also what's happened to Team USA, not at their first World Cup since 1986. Obviously they play Ireland in a friendly this weekend. That's not why I'm excited. I'm excited because me and Dave McIntyre are here doing a football show again.
Yeah, it's a long time.
Possibly years.
Usually when I'm doing the football show, it's because you're not here, or Nathan's not here, and I'm on my own. But I'm looking forward to it, Joe. I think this could be a magical hour.
Dream team. So before we get into Paul Doyle and talk France, because we didn't really talk too much about France because we were so grimmed out by Ireland on Monday evening.
It's the second time you've used that word. You really were grimmed out.
Well, it was difficult watching, you know. I understand us being nervous and not taking a chance to pass the ball in a high-pressured qualification match.
But what were you expecting?
That we might have said, let's when we get the ball, let's try and put some passes together.
You weren't expecting that. You were hopeful of that.
I was a bit more hopeful, yeah. I thought we might have thrown something together.
There's an expectation of that level of football or that intent with the ball, not smack of a little bit of naivety?
There's always a hope, though. There's always the chance.
Yeah, the hope is very different to the expectation.
Well, Martin O'Neill's comments, if you didn't see them today, so they must have been just withheld really for the print, and they've popped up in quite a few of the papers today. The Irish Independent have Martin O'Neill talking about just the difference between championship level of football and international level. It's a real reality check, and you suspect O'Neill is getting this out there, even though it may not do much for the confidence of his players, but almost just to say to everybody, give me a break here, this is what I'm working with. So he's talking about, for instance, Alan Brown struggled on Monday night, and he's had a very, very good season. Player of the season, as voted for by fans and teammates at Preston. He's a very good year. And O'Neill was saying, it's a massive step up, it's incredible. You're talking about the opposition on Monday. The French players were athletic, they were lean, they were brilliant on the ball, and that is not the player, with respect, that young Brown is playing against every single week. It's nothing to do with a different role, because they were talking about Brown being slightly out of position. I've seen Brown over the last 2 years about 20 times. I don't see his role changing. He played on Monday. It's just an incredible step up. And that's what you have to try and cope with. And that's what these players have to try and do. They have to try and go from the football they play in the championship, where it's very competitive, and sometimes it is compelling, but it's not the quality that you're talking about here. And I think it's a great experience, even if Brown hasn't come off all that well in the end. But talking about the step up, it's day and night. I played international football, and in my early days as a player I found it very difficult. The matches were very hard. It was only when I was playing European football with Nottingham Forest and competing and winning big trophies I found I could deal with it better. And I was 25, 26 at that time, and I don't think that has changed one bit. Martin O'Neill drops the mic and says, so there, that's my predicament. And I think we have to have some sympathy with that predicament. I am not saying it's not possible for championship footballers to, in brief spells, get the ball down and play a bit more football, or at least look like we have some kind of a plan, or if we're going to boot it long, at least everyone knows we're going to boot it long, and we don't leave our lone striker, in this case Shane Long, completely isolated. At least we flood forward and it's a coherent plan. But that said, what O'Neill is saying is hard to argue with. I mean, we're just not... we're not producing footballers who can realistically go and do very much at international level. We can't score a goal either, is another issue.
And even when we've had Premier League strikers, we've struggled to score goals. But there's two things I'd take from O'Neill's comments. The first one is that, as you say, it's very hard to find a hole in it, to pick a hole in his arguments, because it's kind of obvious. We are now fishing from the Championship pond, possibly not long before we're fishing from League One's pond and the SSE Electricity League Premier Division pond. And that's a very different time to even 2-3 years ago, where we probably would have been able to put together a starting 11 that had 7, 8, 9 Premier League players, at least half of which would have been regular starters with their club. So that's changed even in the last 18 months, because we've had guys stepping away, fellas like John O'Shea who no longer want to play for the international team, and he owes Ireland nothing. But it's very much the case against France in particular, because Alan Browne is up against a side on Monday night, and would have been up against guys coming off the bench that are, if they aren't playing the Champions League this season, have certainly got experience of the Champions League. A lot of them would have played in a European final for France 2 years ago. And Alan Browne trying to take on, that French midfield, trying to help Ireland defend against the likes of Kylian Mbappe and Griezmann when he comes off the bench. Yeah, and it's ridiculous to ask a player to step up to that standard. But we're not playing France every time we go out. And we show no intention to pass the ball, show no ambition to try and play with any type of creativity, no ambition to try and press high up the pitch against any team. It doesn't matter whether it's France or Georgia. We look appalling either way. And secondly, when he did have those teams which had far more Premier League footballers contained within, we didn't show any ambition to play the type of football that some people are asking Martin O'Neill to play now. So naturally enough, it's going to be even more difficult to do that now that the quality of the players he has available to him are just dropping down a notch. So yes, I agree with him, but for him to paint a picture of Monday night and that being the reason why we couldn't really cope, because we were up against France with these players, well, we were also up against Georgia, we've been up against Armenia, we've been up against really poor teams, Moldova at times, where we couldn't keep the ball. So for me, in that regard, what he's saying does not stack up at all.
Yeah, I think we're 6 goals in our last 9 games for Ireland, and that includes Moldova, where Daryl Murphy scored 2. He's retired now, so it's a grim picture. Dan McDonnell, I know he's on the show last night talking about this, so we'll leave Ireland for now, but he was just writing a very good piece today about it all, and he signed off by basically saying, if you can't score goals, at a minimum, you just can't really expect to be at a tournament. And that's
and I saw Nathan tweeting, might have been Monday night, I fully expect Shane Duffy to be our top scorer in our next qualifying campaign. But I'm not going to argue with O'Neill on this one, but I think if he's to extend the argument over a number of years, I would find plenty of ways to pick holes in it, because I really just don't think he's going to get the best out of the players he has available to him now, just like he didn't get the best out of the players available to him over the last 4 years.
It's also a worry. It's a question whether or not he should be saying this publicly as well. I mean, he's stating the obvious, but it's maybe not good for the players to hear this, but we'll come back to that another time. We do want to get into France and how they're shaping up. They're currently somewhere in the mix with Brazil, Germany, Spain, as the kind of first 4 or 5 in the betting. Belgium are lurking around there as well, but certainly France are a team a lot of people are looking at. And to that end, we have expert in French football, Paul Doyle, whose work you often read in The Guardian, no doubt, on the line. Paul, we'll get into France now, but first, were you as grimmed out by Ireland very quickly as we were?
Yeah, there wasn't a lot to be excited about from that match on Monday anyway. In fact, I noticed that a lot of the French reports on the match lamented how bad Ireland were and how they didn't really give France a test or help them answer any of the lingering problems around the French team.
So, France in Group C have Australia, and then they have Peru, and then they have Denmark. Finally, first match on June the 16th. Isn't it lovely to be able to read out the dates of these games, and they have some significance now, June 16th. So what are the lingering problems that France have then going into the tournament, Paul?
The question is basically that they've got a surplus of great players, but they haven't yet found a system into which to fit them. Didier Deschamps has been trying all sorts of different things, but hasn't quite yet come up with a definitive solution. There is, for example, the problem that Manchester United fans will be familiar with, how best to use Pogba. or rather, there's an awareness that you can't really use him in a 4-4-2 against strong opposition. So what do you do against strong opposition? Do you switch to a midfield three, or do you drop him and play 4-4-2? So that's one of the questions that including him can have the risk of meaning that you can't play with two up top. So Mbappe has to play out sort of coming in off the left, which he's quite capable of doing. But I think he's better through the centre, probably alongside Griezmann. Although Deschamps does love Olivier Giroud, but that would probably be an option off the bench. But it's kind of Deschamps was originally selected in 2012 for two reasons. One, he's perceived as a sort of natural-born winner, and two, he's incredibly meticulous. And when France won the World Cup in 1998, it was attributed to the likes of Deschamps and Zidane and a whole raft of players who were playing in Italy, who sort of blended Italian pragmatism with the natural French flair. And the irony is that in his 6 years in charge, Deschamps hasn't really been able to bring that to the table, and there has been a constant turnover of players, and with the results that they're not yet settled going into the team, and perhaps more alarmingly, there is a mental fragility about them, which you wouldn't have expected. Partially, that may be because they're still quite a young team and inexperienced, but it is. Those are the two reasons why, despite the huge amount of talent they have in the squad, you might not make them favourites to win the tournament.
And he's gone for youth as well, because it's the youngest team in quite some time. In the last 20 years, it's the youngest group going to a major tournament for France. The average age is 26. The average number of caps, only 24. You mentioned, we talked about Pogba at length all season, and it becomes tedious at times. I presume there is no general suggestion amongst former players or pundits out there or the media that potentially Pogba, given the array of talent that Deschamps is leaving on the bench, that Pogba maybe is better off being on the bench and comes on as some kind of impact sub for a better balance?
No, there is a suggestion that he should be left out. Probably it wouldn't be the majority of people calling for that, but the displays of Corentin Tolisso recently, who, although he only has 7 caps, he's been excellent on all 7 of them. He's the Bayern Munich player, and he's probably not quite as extravagantly gifted as Pogba can be on his day, but he is a very creative player. But he also does all the defensive work. He wins a hell of a lot of possession in midfield, and he can pass well. So he is a more complete midfielder than Pogba, if not quite as spectacular. And there is a body of thought that think that he should start instead of Pogba. More likely, if they do play in midfield 3, is Blaise Matuidi will be sacrificed for Tolisso, and Pogba probably will start. But if they play a 4-4-2, then I don't think Pogba will play. Even though that system will probably be only used against weaker teams. But certainly he's not a guaranteed starter for them.
Well, you talked about the incredible turnover of players, and the numbers are stark. 6 of this squad were in Brazil 4 years ago. 9 of the squad were at Euro 2016. It's quite incredible. In such a short space of time, almost 60-70% of the squad is no longer there. Now, there are varying reasons, a couple of injuries and a loss of form in the case of 1 or 2 players. I know there's been a bit of a standoff between Deschamps and a couple of players left out and whether or not they want to be on the standby list. But he's the only constant. Yet, when you watch France, given how many players he's used in his time in charge since 2012, I struggle to see what the identity of the team is. Like, in the French public's mind, what is the identity of this French side? What is it that you expect to see from them when you go and watch them?
Well, that's what I'm driving at. Despite him being there for 6 years, he hasn't really established an identity or a system. I think most likely what he's going to lean towards, because he is quite conservative, is to turn France into a counter-attacking team, because they do have incredible speed and can be very sharp on the counter-attack. That's probably what he'll go for, especially.
How does that work, Paul, though, against the majority of teams where France are actually going to be the side dominating the ball?
Yeah, well, I think it didn't work. For example, when they dominated the ball in the qualifiers, because they didn't qualify particularly impressively. I can't remember how many goals they scored in their 10 group games,
18.
but it wasn't that many.
18.
And they memorably, drew 0-0 with Luxembourg, despite them just throwing all the attacking talent on, and they drew 0-0 with Belarus as well, and lost to Sweden. The Sweden match was probably particularly revealing because he was very slow to change its tactics during that match, and that's generally something that he's been pretty good at. He has made a lot of mistakes during his tenure in terms of personnel and tactics for particular matches, but he has generally corrected them pretty quick. Against Ireland in the Euros, for example, he changed the system and personnel at half time, and they were much better in the second half, unfortunately. But he wasn't in that game. Although on the flip side, after that game, he did react, and he finally axed some players to whom he had been too loyal, such as Sissoko. But in terms of finding creativity in tight matches, if you can't rely on Pogba, another player has come to the fore recently, partially because of Payet's injury. And Payet, of course, was a late sort of call-up for Euro 2016 and ended up being the star. And his replacement, Nabil Fekir, could kind of have a similar effect in Russia, perhaps.
The role of Deschamps within the squad, like we often hear about Zidane at Real Madrid, and while he probably deserves a little more credit for his tactical acumen than maybe he gets, he is talked about amongst the Real players as the guy that is able to keep all of the egos in check, retain the peace and harmony within the dressing room. Is that something that Deschamps is able to do? Is he there to put a stamp on the group tactically and emotionally, or is he just there to make sure that the bottom doesn't fall out of the entire project and he doesn't endure a similar experience to that of Raman Dominic?
No, harmony, there is generally harmony throughout the squad, and that has been one of his achievements, and it's been one of the reasons, for example, that he's left out Karim Benzema for so long. He has tried to get rid of characters that he doesn't deem compatible with the group. It's why, for example, Adrien Rabiot has probably no chance of ever playing for France again under him after his outburst at being named only as a standby for the squad. But he is. He has created a really good atmosphere in the squad. He's also incredibly well respected by the players because of his deeds, both as a player and as a manager, and he does, and he always has emitted a kind of natural leadership that players respected. That's going right back to when he was 16, and there's a famous sort of story in France that has been used to illustrate how he has been a sort of born leader. It was when he was 16, and he was a scholar at Nantes, and his roommate was Marcel Desailly, and Desailly's brother was killed in a car crash, and the coaches were discussing how to tell him. They didn't know how to break the news to him, and Deschamps said, "He's my friend, I'll tell him." And he went, even though he was only 16, and he told him. And Desailly has since said that he handled it in such a compassionate way that they've been lifelong friends, So that was just an example of the sort of charisma, if you like, he has. And most players that stay in the squad do admire him.
That's an amazing story. I hadn't heard that before.
Yeah.
Forever, Paul, the French team, or if not quite forever, then certainly for a long time now, they've been an over-politicised entity, and they have things projected onto them, and they represent different things to different people. And everybody famously, everybody knows what 98 represented, some kind of multicultural, inclusive society and a representation of the sons of immigrants, and that France had come together. And then you have the nadir of 2010, and I'm wondering where in 2016, 2018 this French team is in terms of what it represents, how it's perceived by the French public, politically and socially.
I think it's perceived better. I mean, there's still a large segment of the population which will say that footballers, because of their wealth, etc., are just a part, and don't have the same values as Joe Soap, but I don't think there is the same sort of racial tension around the squad that people like Karim Benzema have alluded to. I don't think that really washed with the public. They didn't buy that Deschamps would be involved in anything like that, and there's no suggestion of disharmony of that nature within the squad. So I think it will be seen as a group of, if they do underperform, let's say, I don't think that will be level against them. You may get people saying, well, they're just spoilt millionaires who don't care, or they may say they're mentally weak because they've been too pampered by both at their clubs and in the national team.
So almost just seen for what they are, which is a football team.
Yes, I think so.
How are they going to do then? What are realistic expectations? What does Deschamps have to do here to come home with his reputation intact is an interesting question.
It is an interesting question, yeah. I think just by the sheer talent, and I think they should go quite far in the tournament. And certainly they should get out of the group. I mean, I know 2002, etc., remains as a stark reminder that you can never take anything for granted with French teams. But I think they just have so many good players in every position, and Deschamps does, even if he starts with the wrong selections, he generally adjusts things in the course of games. So I think they'll go quite far.
Okay, interesting few weeks ahead. Paul, as ever, thanks very much.
Okay, cheers, bye.
Cheers, Paul.
That's Paul Doyle with his take.
I've kind of looked through the draw. I've got to look through the draw just to get an inkling as to who they might come across on their way. And obviously you're relying on form lines, and as Paul said, just look at 0-2 and you can see how quickly things can fall apart. But they could face Argentina or Croatia in the last 16. So if they're not playing well, Argentina is certainly not the team they were in the past, but they have good players. They have the best player in the world, and Croatia technically could hurt any side. Possibly Portugal, who beat them in the Euro final in the last 8, and then Belgium or Brazil in the semis. Like, they're going to have to win some massive games to get to the final.
If they can harness the talent and maximise the talent, they're an unbelievable squad. I mean, the players they're leaving out are just insane.
Yeah.
Benzema for different reasons, non-footballing reasons, but he's still being left out. I mean, most countries would be desperate enough to get Benzema and they'd make it work.
Rabiot, although Rabiot never impresses me, and I've seen him live. I've been at several Champions League games at PSG in particular, and he's brutal.
Okay.
He undersells himself a lot, and that's what Deschamps was saying. He only has to look at his performances in the last 3 times he's played for France. He'll see why he was left out. Martial not there, Lacazette not there,
Payet.
Kingsley Coman not there, Payet injured, Koscielny injured, Benzema you've already mentioned. I mean, the other night, Griezmann, Pogba, Dembele all came off the bench, as well as Lucas Hernandez, the Atletico Madrid defender. Kante not used, Varane not used for obvious reasons, Lloris not used. Like, it's unbelievable the depth of talent they have. It's extraordinary.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I was looking through the squad, and Paul mentioned Tolisso there, and he's only half decent season at Bayern. They don't actually have that really creative midfield player that could just unlock the opposition defence. Kante will start, obviously.
Well, in theory, it should be Pogba.
Theoretically, yes.
Yeah.
But
it's interesting that he's a problem child for them as well. Like, how do we... This guy's clearly gifted in so many ways. How do we use him? Is a conversation going on?
Didier Deschamps should be ringing his former Juventus teammate, Antonio Conte, who was one of the managers that got an awful lot out of him. If he has any kind of relationship with Massimiliano or Allegri, he should be ringing him as well, because he definitely got the best out of him. It was Allegri that put him in a position where United were willing to pay £100 million for him. So it is possible to get the best out of Pogba and have him look like a world-class operator. But clearly Mourinho doesn't know how to do it. Deschamps definitely doesn't, and even midway through Euro 2016 he had major issues in trying to get the best out of Pogba.
Well, I even think of the Euro, I even think of the final against Portugal, and injuries have kicked in, and there's different scenarios. But quite literally, the closing, certainly 25 minutes, if not more, had just Pogba sat in the centre circle. That was all he was doing. He wasn't leaving the centre circle. He was just passing the ball forward. Like, Portugal had fallen back. They'd scored at that stage. And so they were camped in their own half. And Pogba was deemed to be the guy to sit in the centre circle. And anytime the ball broke out to him, just feed it back into the French players who were further up the pitch. And I remember thinking, I hadn't seen a huge amount of Pogba at that stage, week in, week out, but I was thinking, this isn't what I've heard of this guy.
Yeah.
This isn't what he's supposed to be doing. So they even don't quite know how to use him at the most crucial moment of the tournament.
Yeah.
And here we are 2 years later.
And he knows even less, I would think.
Only.
So, I don't know, look, you've got Mbappe in the team, so if you can find any space in behind, he's obviously electric. But Paul talking about Deschamps trying to turn them into a counter-attacking team. If you're up against the likes of Ireland, if you're up against Denmark, Australia or Peru, you're not going to get an opportunity to counter-attack against those teams very often.
I think they're just going to beat them even by dint of unmaximised quality.
I don't know
it's more about the latter stages.
I think they could be a surprise package, France, for the wrong reasons.
Oh no, 0-2 again.
Well, see, there were other issues in 2002 and they had won a World Cup. But any side that can draw at home to Luxembourg can throw in a couple of real stinking performances at a World Cup. To draw with Belarus, to lose to Sweden, like these teams are, Sweden been the best of them, but Sweden are no great shakes. I think, I'm not predicting it here, so because I know you guys will just throw it back at me in a few weeks' time. But I have just a sneaking feeling that, yes, they're going to get out of the group, obviously. But I've just outlined the route that they may have to take to the final. I just think France may well let themselves down on the field this time, as opposed to the manner in which they've let themselves down in the past.
Okay, interesting.
I'd love to see them go far. I really would.
I think a tournament has a certain amount of old school glamour when France are going well.
Yeah.
I love them being involved in the latter
Is it
stages.
that stereotypical Gallic flair?
There's the Gallic flair, there's the fans, there's the anthem. Like, I guess I kind of grew up on the 98 team a little bit and loved them, so there's just a residual love for French culture and
I think you're right. Yeah, you'd love to see them go deep into the tournament, but they're on a very difficult side. For Belgium and Brazil both to be on that side, obviously if you're on the other side, you're up against Germany and Spain, so none of it's going to be easy, but it'll be very interesting.
Yeah, I was at one or two French press conferences in Euro 2016, certainly around the Ireland game as well, and even in the build-up to the Ireland game, and even after the Ireland game when they'd comprehensively beaten Ireland, Deschamps' relationship with the French press was very testy. The questions coming at him were, tactically, you still haven't got this figured out, have you, Didier?
Right.
That kind of tone.
Okay.
It was very pointed, very angry. Martin O'Neill thinks he gets a hard time over here. Deschamps, even mid-Euro 2016, when things were going relatively well and the country was happy and they'd just beaten Ireland, even then it was kind of a, you're still not doing, you don't really know what you're doing in a lot of ways, kind of an atmosphere. So
well, they should be winning European Championships and getting to World Cup finals with that group of players.
Yeah. Okay, we'll take a break. That was Paul Doyle's take on France. We're playing USA this Saturday?
This week.
Okay, that says something.
Saturday night, we're
Saturday
told.
night. I think it's 8:08 p.m. actually. 8:08 this Saturday. Ireland play USA. Neither of us going to World Cup. Unlike USA, it's the first time we haven't been, or it's the first time they haven't been at a World Cup since 1986. So we'll find out if it's just a wobble or things are creaking in US football next.
Football on Off the Ball.
In association with the faster than ever Boyle Sports app. Multiples made easy and personalised content on every sport. Download it now. Boyle Sports. Time to play.
The Moncrief Show is on the road again, and this time we're coming to beautiful Killarney. We're going to kick off your weekend with a special 2 hours of movies and booze from the Great Southern in Killarney, where we'll be tasting some lovely craft beers for the June bank holiday weekend. Join us in the audience to taste some lovely beers, have good food, enjoy some great music and everything else Movies and Booze has to offer. For tickets, go to newstalk.com/events and follow the link.
Movies and Booze on Moncrief.
Proudly sponsored by Carry Out Off Licence.
This and every Friday on Newstalk.
At Bruce Betting, we're celebrating 40 years as one of Ireland's leading bookmakers with the launch of our brand new website and iOS app. Packed with features and easy to use, the new Bruce Betting app includes ACCA Insurance, Cash Out and Live Casino. Bruce Betting, giving you more. In store, online and now on your phone. Please gamble responsibly.
It's all fun and games this bank holiday weekend at Appliances Delivered. The fun is in choosing which incredible value appliance to order, and the game is Beat the Clock, where Appliances Delivered will offer a limited time only unbelievable deal, and you have to grab that bargain before time runs out. Better be quick though, each deal lasts for a limited time only, and when it's gone for next day delivery. Time is ticking, so beat the clock this bank holiday weekend only at appliancesdelivered.ie. Why pay more? Terms and conditions apply.
So many cars look the same. Do you want to drive a car that looks different? A car that feels different? All Mazdas are designed with the Japanese philosophy of Jinba Atai, making them the perfect harmony of driver and car. And from the 6th to the 16th of June, we're having the Mazda Drive Together event, where you can avail of incredible offers, like a €4,000 summer bonus. Visit your local Mazda retailer and experience the difference. Mazda, drive together. Terms and conditions apply.
When your summer sounds like this, instead of this, you need to find a way to escape the misery of hay fever. New Nasacort Nasal Spray is a unique once-a-day hay fever treatment whose special formula stays where it's sprayed, providing effective relief from congestion, sneezing, and an itchy, runny nose. Start each summer's day the Nasacort way, and you could be on a path to your perfect summer. Ask your pharmacist for details. Contains triamcinolone acetonide. Always read the label.
It's wedding season, and whether you're a groom or a guest, you're guaranteed to get that perfect fit if you visit the multi-award-winning menswear store, Galvin Tullamore. Home to a selection of the world's finest brands, superior wedding suit hire, and an in-store tailoring service. Galvin Tullamore, where great style meets great service.
Off the ball. This is News Talk.
You're welcome back. So, as discussed pre the ad break there, we're not the only ones not going to the World Cup, although we're unfortunately becoming somewhat used to the situation. Unlike Team USA, who've been going since post-1986, this is their first time missing out. To the shock of everyone, really, we've become kind of used to Team USA being there. So, Brian Sciaretta joins us on the line, who's writing your read at American Soccer Now in the New York Times. Evening, Brian.
Good evening, guys. How are you?
Very well. So, what's happened to you guys then?
Oh, it's been a long several months, and I think everyone's looking forward to the World Cup just being over here. But it was a very difficult time last year. Unfortunately, the signs have been coming because it was a very poor cycle for the U.S. team. And my belief is that the whole thing happened because there was a huge generational gap of players. It was a very old team towards the end of qualifying. It was a very promising young group of players in their very early 20s and late teens, but there was really nothing in between. A bunch of players never fulfilled their potential, and we were stuck with an old team that became very complacent and didn't really fight as hard as they could have. And the result was that they were susceptible in the end to an upset against Trinidad and Tobago, and that's what happened.
It seems strange. It seems strange that somehow along the campaign they weren't jolted into life, because across the 10 games they just won 3 of 10. They finished 5th of 6th here, and I know it came down to that final game against Trinidad, but it seems like right across the campaign it was clear something wasn't quite right, and even still the complacency didn't seem to dissolve.
Yeah, I mean, look, there was no doubt that the team didn't play up to the sum of its parts. I mean, they still had good players, but I think you had other teams that you had a group of players that was just used to going to the World Cup against opponents that were trying to get to the World Cup and had that hunger of never having been to the World Cup. I mean, that used to be the hallmark of the early American teams that I could remember. And like I said, that's really what it was. It was a loss of appetite. I mean, they were sunk by a bunch of players who are decent but not great here in our own league in Major League Soccer. So it was really kind of bizarre, but you could kind of see that this team didn't have the grit and the determination that it used to do, and it was apparent for many years, ever since the previous World Cup. It wasn't just like something that just came up and got them at the very end.
It wasn't like they didn't have an experienced man on the sideline in Bruce Arena. And I saw a quote the night the game was over, after they'd been beaten by Trinidad. And like, for the benefit of our listeners who weren't familiar with the qualification setup over in that part of the world, like, it's a group of 6. The top 3 go to the World Cup. The 4th team out of 6 advanced to an interconfederation playoff. So had they got a point from the Trinidad game, their superior goal difference comparison to Honduras would have seen them take on Australia over 2 legs. So they still had a brilliant chance to actually qualify. But I saw some people bemoaning the sacking, or certainly the departure of Jurgen Klinsmann as the manager. Was that just because they had nothing else to really grasp onto, because no one was really pleased with Klinsmann when he was there?
No, I mean, I believe Klinsmann was not the right guy for the job. And I think they should have parted ways after the last World Cup and brought in fresh new blood. I kind of think that U.S. has a bad history of guys sticking around for a second cycle. I mean, it was Bruce Arena's problem, I think, after 2002, that his second cycle wasn't as good. You know, Bob Bradley didn't make it far into his second cycle. Now, Jurgen, I think he completely lost the team. Bruce didn't really have much of a chance, really. I mean, he had to fix it was his job to fix the problems, and he didn't do it. He made some bad decisions along the way. But he inherited a team that the culture and the locker room was a mess. And he didn't really have any friendlies to really kind of resolve the problem, where you can kind of try out new things and see what's working, what's not. So it was just a tough hand he was dealt, and he did a poor job with the tough hand. So, yeah, I mean, I think the problem is they probably should have let go of Klinsmann earlier and allow another manager to lay his. It didn't have to be Bruce at that point. They were left in a situation where it had to be Bruce because he's a really senior figure there, but. If they let Klinsmann go earlier, they could have gone with someone else and who could have tried to right the ship when it was apparent that things were a ways off, which I think was the 2015 Gold Cup, which is when he should have been gone after that.
Just looking through the squad that's coming to Dublin for the weekend, there are lots of names where they're at English clubs but aren't overly familiar, so they're there but they're not quite making a breakthrough, and then there's other names who are playing their football in the MLS. Is this how below full strength is the squad coming to Dublin?
I mean, look, if it was the World Cup right now, you'd be missing some senior figures, but I think they got a good grasp of the top prospects or the top young and up-and-coming players that they believe will have a future. Minus one big exception is Christian Pulisic, the star for Borussia Dortmund. Yeah. He's tired after a long season. He needs a break, and everyone kind of understands that. But I think, you're starting to see some of the guys there that they really, really believe have a huge future with the team. Weston McKennie's one who starts for Schalke. They were second in the Bundesliga. It is kind of funny that they do have some players for Premier League teams. I mean, most Americans now are finding their way toward Germany because they're easier with their work permits for
Yeah, because I was going to ask that really about what is the perceived best route now for young American players to make their way in the game. So here over in Ireland for a long time, and with increased competition at academies, it's less and less the case. But the general plan was you'd play in your schoolboy league until you were 12, 13, 14, hopefully get spotted by a scout, and then go over to a big English club and hopefully make your way through the academy system here. What's the route through generally for American wonder kids coming through? We've been hearing for a long time with the soccer revolution that America will be winning World Cups in the foreseeable future. That doesn't feel like it's on the horizon. How are you guys producing your best players?
I mean, I think the next generation is pretty good. I mean, it's exciting, and it's too bad that they're not at the World Cup. I think, there's a lot of different routes. Some of the old routes that are like, college is still a factor in some respects. And Major League Soccer teams now are fully entrenched with investing in academies that are kind of European flavored. That wasn't always the case, and I think that was also a big reason why the U.S. team didn't qualify for the World Cup, because you're missing that middle generation where the new modern pathways aren't there yet. So you have now Major League Soccer academies, and some kids do have the passport availability, European, because their parents or grandparents are from a European country that allows them to go over before they turn 18. But generally, it's through Major League Soccer academies. I think you're finding that the more likely route to get overseas. But yeah, the work restrictions make it a little bit tougher than that. And sometimes a lot of young players now are also continuing to play their first couple of years, I think, in Major League Soccer before they get spotted and make the jump over.
There are 15 guys in this squad with 5 caps or fewer. There's a lot of young guys, as you've said, at the top of the piece. And I just wonder, in the corridors of power in US soccer, do they see this as a real opportunity? That the fact is, if you'd gone to the World Cup with the likes of Tim Howard and Josie Altidore and Bradley in the team, and the chances are you weren't going to do very well. And we're
definitely turn a page, and it's unfortunately it's taken such a harsh reality to do so. Again, like, it's tough to blame guys like Bradley and Josie, because there was no one who was 25, 24, 25 pushing them. It was kind of unrealistic to hope a bunch of teenagers were. But now this kind of gives them the benefit of not having a meaningful game, because we don't have European qualifiers right after the World Cup. There is no meaningful game between that game in Trinidad and the next Gold Cup, which is almost 2 years. It's a year and a half, over a year and a half. So now you get like kind of a year and a half of games where there's no pressure to go out there and win. You can go out there and let these young kids play together and grow together, and then maybe some of the veterans can come back into the equation later. So it is kind of a unique opportunity that we've never had before, but it's one that you can all of a sudden start saying, here Weston McKennie, here Tyler Adams, who's another great player. Go out there and grow together. And on top of that, we also have the Olympics, which we take Olympic soccer seriously in this country. And most of our current national team is Olympic eligible, which is under 23. So it's there's a lot of really big opportunities to be played inside the next before Qatar.
But they need the right man.
They
need the right man in charge, don't they? They've got one of Bruce Arena's backroom team in there at the moment, is Sarakat, and he's the interim manager.
Yeah.
Is he going to get the job on a full-time basis, or are they going to hire a big name like Klinsmann? What's the next move?
No, absolutely. Yeah, Sarakat won't be the next head coach. I mean, I'd be stunned, and so would anyone else be if he's the next head coach. They're in the process of hiring a technical director to run the whole soccer side of the federation, which is probably going to go to Ernie Stewart, the former U.S. international. Had 101 caps, played mostly in the Eredivisie, and he ran some Eredivisie teams. I don't think it's going to be, if it is a big name, it's going to go to someone who, not like Klinsmann, but someone who has a significant coaching experience, because Klinsmann really didn't have that. It's going to go to a real coach. It might be domestic, it might be foreign. That remains to be seen, but I think it's going to be, they'll name the next head coach within the next month or so. But right now, I think many of the federation in charge is concentrating on our own World Cup bid that's going to be announced soon for 2026.
I guess a vibrant league will undoubtedly help the popularity of the game generally and increase the chances of the national team of making a real impact on World Cups in the future. It's hard to gauge actually on the occasions I've been over in the States over the last couple of years to what extent the MLS is capturing the imagination. Like, even I was in New York recently, and all the advertisements I'm seeing in pubs are for Manchester United games and Liverpool games and Chelsea games. I don't really see any for MLS games, and it kind of struck me as well. It seems like soccer is definitely more visible here, and you're seeing that even just small anecdotal things like advertisements in pubs for Premier League matches. So soccer is certainly on the up. It was kind of hard to gauge to what extent MLS is on the up, or where that is in American sporting consciousness.
I mean, I think it's definitely growing. I think New York is always a tough, because it's such an international city. You almost get that versus like a many of the other cities throughout the league. The average attendance is over 20,000, well over 20,000, which is good. It's healthy. If you go to Atlanta, you'll get a different reaction completely, where they get between 40 and 60,000 people a game. I mean, the MLS's big competition is the best leagues in the world, because that's what people want to watch. And, it's trying to find a way that people can like them both. And, it's to a lesser extent, you have that with the League of Ireland, where, you find more people watching Liverpool than Cork City. But, to that being said, I mean, I think that there are more inroads and more ways for MLS to succeed in this country. New York, I think, is tough way to gauge it, but it needs to survive. I mean, and needs to continue to do well, because we can't outsource, our own development and our own passion for the game outside of our borders. A lot has to be done within. And, I am pleased with it, but missing the World Cup didn't help, because that means there's a lot of people pointing fingers and saying, even though people who are players based abroad struggled as much as players based in Major League Soccer struggled. There's a lot of negative finger pointing, which is not healthy right now, and that's no solution.
You obviously watch that group very closely, so you'd be best placed maybe to give us an insight into the teams that caused the USA to miss out. So Mexico, Costa Rica and Panama are the three countries in there. Panama maybe most interestingly in England's group. I mean, we've seen nothing of Panama. This is the first time in my lifetime and the first time they've qualified for the FIFA World Cup. We're a bit more familiar with Mexico and to a lesser extent Costa Rica, but with England in mind, what can they expect from Panama?
Not much. I mean, the US, right before they lost to Trinidad and Tobago, they blew Panama out 4-0. And they had no problems with them. I mean, I think you're just going to, England's going to be facing in Panama a very good defensive team that can bunker very well. and I think is going to be looking to make the most of 1 or 2 scoring opportunities. It wouldn't be the first time that upsets were caused that way. But, I mean, I don't really think... Panama was disappointing that they made it over the U.S., and most surprising, but, that's how it goes. I mean, the U.S. was much better than Panama, but, it was not against common opponents. But, like I said, they have some good players, but they're mostly defensive. So it's going to be a real bunker fest.
Brian Sciaretta, thanks so much for filling us in and all that.
Anytime, guys. Thanks.
Off the Ball on News Talk.
So you've decided it's an SUV for 182. But which one is the one for you? How about the German SUV with sleek design, uncompromised performance and intelligent safety that makes it the perfect fit for your family? The Opel Grandland X. And when you make the smart choice and choose the Grandland X, we give you even more choice, like 0% PCP or HP finance. Auf Wiedersehen interest. Or €2,500 scrappage. Wunderbar. Or 5 years free servicing. Keine Problem. The impressive Opel Grandland X and an equally impressive 182 offer? Well, that's just the German in us. Visit your local Opel dealership for more. Opel. The future is everyone's. Terms and conditions apply.
Did you know that if you supply new or used cars or light commercial vehicles to drivers in the Republic of Ireland, you have a legal obligation under end-of-life vehicle regulations? That's where Elves can help by providing you with the most cost-effective option to ensure you're compliant. Visit elves.ie for your 2018 motor dealer application form. Elves. Driving car recycling forward.
Get comfortable investing with Irish Life. Over 60,000 people in Ireland have already invested in Irish Life Maps, our multi-asset portfolio funds on our investment plans. Start your investment journey today. Talk to your financial broker or advisor or search for Irish Life Maps. Information correct as of April 2018. Irish Life Assurance plc is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
Maeve loves to travel. She's also prone to overpacking, getting sunburned, and snoring surprisingly loudly. But last month, she helped 3 people sell their home with Sherry Fitzgerald, and another 5 the month before that. You may not recommend her as a travelling companion. Aloha! But as an estate agent, she has exceptional local knowledge and really cares about getting the best outcome. Sherry Fitzgerald, the agent you'd recommend to a friend. Selling your home? Visit sherryfitz.ie.
Some things never change, but we have. Topaz is changing to Circle K, but don't worry, we'll still have Miles Fuels, our delicious food range and Simply Great coffee. My customers kickstart their morning with our famous breakfast burritos. I'm Jennifer from Circle K Macroom. Circle K, new name, same people.
It's time for summer at Dunnes Stores. Get ready for the bank holiday with our delicious barbecue meats. Buy any 3 for €10. Or mix and match 24-pack Bummers and Budweiser. Get 2 for just €50. Save again with our €10 off every €50 grocery voucher. Dunnes Stores, always better value. Please drink sensibly. Terms and conditions apply. See in store for details. Minimum spend required.
Off the Ball. This is News Talk.
So, we are pretty much done for this evening. I should remind you, we have a very special show coming up at Vicar Street before we go. 30 years in Stuttgart and Euro 88. So Thursday, 7th of June, we are live from Vicar Street in association with Boyle Sports. Nathan Murphy and Kevin Kilban will be alongside Ronnie Whelan, Kevin Moran, and of course Ray Houghton. John Giles also there. So if you want to come along, go on to offtheball.com/events. Also, somebody's won a very nice 49-inch TV this evening. Every day this week, we've been teaming up with Expert Electrical to give you the chance to win one just in time for the World Cup. We asked you to identify our mystery voice. It was, of course, David Moyes. And our winner tonight is Terry McManus from Leixlip. Terry, well done. TV on its way to you.
Sweet prize. Good man,
nice.
Terry.
OTB AM back tomorrow, 7:45. Facebook, YouTube, Periscope. Nathan back in the hot seat tomorrow. And Dave, you'll agree, I'm sure there's loads of good stuff to download from tonight's show. Brian O'Driscoll with Isan Sewa. We have Tom Parsons, who was brilliant, if you didn't catch him earlier, really, really good. James O'Donoghue from Kerry as well, and the football show if you're just tuning in. Dave, my thanks to you. It was a pleasure.
Joe, anytime.
Anytime.
Well, not really anytime. The odd time.
Whenever it suits me and the price is right, says Dave McIntyre. Tom Dunn on the way next. Good luck.
Give my ball any autographs.
The News Talk app is News Talk in your pocket. Download it now.
Michael promised he'd teach the kids to fly their blue kite the next sunny day they had.
There's a knack to it. Run as fast as you can. Let the wind catch it. Give it more string, Molly. That's it.
Always ask yourself the question,
Are you sure it's safe?
When flying kites, drones or remote control planes, always look out for overhead electricity wires. Stay safe. Stay clear of electricity wires. For emergencies, call 1850 372 999. ESB Networks, serving all electricity customers.
Years of service, one game of appreciation. The Republic of Ireland play the USA in a 3 international friendly on Saturday, June 2nd. As we prepare for the upcoming Nations League, it's the end of another chapter for Ireland's long-serving hero, John O'Shea. The Republic of Ireland versus the USA, Aviva Stadium, Saturday, June 2nd at 8:08 p.m. Get your tickets now from just €20 at ticketmaster.ie. Booking fee applies.
At Bruce Betting, we're celebrating 40 years as one of Ireland's leading bookmakers with the launch of our brand new website and iOS app. Packed with features and easy to use, the new Bruce Betting app includes ACCA insurance, cash out and live casino. Bruce Betting, giving you more. In store, online and now on your phone. Please gamble responsibly.